What's going on, my fellow degenerates? Football is back, and so are we, baby. So, we're going to talk today some strategies about your fantasy football drafts. It's that time of year. Maybe you haven't been following football the offseason at all. That's okay. Probably most of your league mates are in the same scenario. So, we're going to talk some brief strategies and things to do in the upcoming weeks before your fantasy football draft. So, without further ado, our first point is probably the most annoying point, but it's going to be the most helpful, is to be making your own rankings. So I want you to make your own rankings for fantasy football, ranking your players from roughly 1 to 200 ish. Just kidding. You don't have to go that in depth. I also don't recommend doing it one by one. I think everyone should use a tier system. Tier systems, everyone knows what they are. They're very familiar. Tiers of 3 to 8 players, roughly, who you want. That way, when you are on the clock for your pick, you don't have to be looking like, oh, do I want this player? Do I want this player? You don't want to be scrolling through the ADPs of Yahoo, ESPN, Sleeper, NFL.com, any of those sites. The ADPs are always jumbled. They're garbage. They're not good tools to go off of. So you want to use what resources you have being your own resources to form your own opinions on these players. It's great that Malik Neighbors is going at pick 8, but why is he going at pick 8? Do you think that's should be the case? Do you not think that should be the case? So you want to form these opinions on these players. That way, you're not just picking players to pick players. You want to pick players that you want to pick, form the team that you want to have, that you think is going to give you the competitive advantage over your league mates. So making this tier list of top 200-ish players is going to be the way to do that. Plus, it really gets your mind in the right place. Makes you think about things like, what do you think about Bryce Young and the Panthers? Panthers pretty awful last year, pretty awful in recent history. That being said, they looked pretty good down the stretch last year. Bryce Young kind of tearing it up. He had a really good rushing game. Chuba Hubbard's re-signed. Jonathan Brooks is out for a while. They got Tet McMillan, so maybe it's a team you like. Maybe you think they suck and they're not going to be good. So, yes, form those opinions, draft your players according to your own opinions. And one other thing with your own opinions that I want you to do when you make these tier lists is realize players that you want to make a reach on. So if you look at these general ADPs, looking at them, maybe some players you're significantly higher on than the market, and that's okay. So take your time, go and reach for those players. Players you reach for is your own opinion. You believe in them. You believe in their team. You don't believe in them just because you're a Patriots fan and you want them to do well. You believe in them because you think they're a great player. Travion Henderson, you think they're going to be a much better team this year, that kind of thing. So if it's for the right reasons, you want to reach on a player. Heading into the year, these ADPs, preseason rankings, they don't mean anything come week 2, week 3, week 4. At that point, it's all production. So you can't make a trade off week 5 being like, well, this guy got drafted higher than this guy, so you should take him. No, how many points are they scoring? What does their team look like? That's what it matters. So if you believe in a guy, you take him. So shout out my Josh Downs truthers out there right now. All those people just waiting for another year now that Daniel Jones is the starter. They're going to cash in on it finally. I'm sure this is the season. So, all right, moving on. Next point is good teams. Do you want players on bad teams or good teams? Good teams, obviously. Yeah, no shit. But every year, people like myself, we get fantasized with these Garrett Wilsons, these Breece Halls, these DJ Moores. Cherry Judy this year is going way overdrafted. So, obviously you want players on these teams that are going to score more points. So take a look, see what teams are predicted to score a lot of points this year. I'll throw a chart up right here. Keep it simple. Top 15, 16 teams projected to one random sports book. Obviously, sports books aren't perfect, but they know a lot. They usually win money. So I go by them. They're a great reference tool. So obviously player on these teams more likely to score more fantasy points because their NFL team scores more real points. Simple as that. So obviously you're going to draft some players on some bad teams, and that's okay. This is more of a tiebreaker thing. So deciding between two players, do I want a player on the Jags or do I want a player on the Bills? Obviously I'm going Bills if I have them in the same tier. So next point is knowing your league mates. So a lot of people have been playing the same fantasy leagues for a long time, which is great. That means you should know your league mates' tendencies. Do they reach a lot? Are they Patriots homers? Are they Chiefs homers? Do they love the Eagles, players on the Eagles, that kind of thing? Do they always draft a tight end early? Do they value running backs a lot? Do they not value running backs? These are kind of things that you want to use when it comes to the draft, if you can, to keep an eye out for. So, say the guy drafting before you always reaches on quarterback early. That doesn't mean you need to reach on a quarterback early as well. So, just pay attention, use it to your advantage. Also, if you've been in one of these leagues for a while, make sure to keep your bridges open, your pathways, talking to people, making trades. You always have a couple people in each league that are much more active. Hopefully, you're one of them making trades to best improve your team. So you don't want to waste your time making trades with the people who aren't going to trade their players. You don't want the diehard Steelers fan to not trade you Caleb Johnson because he believes he's the second coming of Saquon Barkley. Like, you're not going to waste your time doing that. So, yeah, know your league mates, use it to your advantage. All right. So the next point is for those of us who've been playing fantasy football for a long, long time, is it's okay to draft your QBs early. That being said, if you don't get one early, I would just wait for a long time. So in the past, we've tended to last 10 years or so, we've punted on quarterback a lot, and it's been the ideal strategy. When you had Tom Brady, you had Peyton Manning, you had Drew Brees. These guys is the top tier. They didn't have any rushing upside, so their points per game versus the quarterback 12, who is like the Carson Palmer kind of tier. It honestly wasn't too much different. Like, spending an early pick on Tom Brady over those guys outside of a couple monster seasons, 2007 Tom, 2005 Peyton, those kind of years. Roughly, we're only like 2-3 points per game different when you look at the numbers. So, not too crazy. Waiting on a quarterback became the norm after that. That being said, these last few years, we've had a bit of a pivot. So, you have Josh Allen, you have Lamar Jackson, you have Jalen Hurts, you have Jaden Daniels. Those are the big four now. We'll see who else can crack into that category. We have a couple guys who are trending in that direction. We got Caleb Williams, we got Drake May, maybe. So yeah, we'll see those kind of guys. If they're going early, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You get Josh Allen, he gives you 5 points per game on the quarterback position, a leg up on most managers in your league, other than Lamar Jackson owner. Like, yeah, that's a no brainer. I'm going to take that. That being said, when the quarterback run happens, and I think most of our leagues, we tend to see this. Josh Allen goes at the back half of the second round, and then all of a sudden we're midway through the third round, and 8 quarterbacks have been taken. And it's like, oh, should I draft the best player available, or do I take a quarterback because there's not that many left? When this happens, I love to just sit and wait and draft a quarterback later. At this point, you're not getting any quarterback who's going to make a real difference compared to the QBs you can get later in the draft. So take who falls because of all these quarterback picks. Maybe Drake London fell much further than he should have. Maybe Omari and Hampton's sitting there and you really like him, that kind of thing. So take those players who should have been drafted earlier at this moment in time. If you're getting a player like AJ Brown much later than you should get him, you should feel ecstatic, like an absolute win. Plus, getting a quarterback much later on, there's still some guys down there with great opportunity. Caleb Williams going very late this year. He still has a lot of rushing upside. I don't really like Caleb Williams. I'm not like a huge Ben Johnson guy, but I imagine he has a decent year in comparison, and he's not putting up significantly worse points than the QBs going much earlier than him, just for example. So, yeah, feel free to draft your quarterback early or just punt on it like we are normal with. So, our next strategy here is going to be getting multiple players on the team. So we're talking not just stacking. I know most of us are familiar with stacking our quarterbacks and our wide receivers. That way, when the team has a boom week, we really feel like it does a lot for us. And yes, that feels great. Statistically, it's not really an advantage, especially in regular scoring formats. Best ball is kind of a different thing. But yeah, statistically, not going to increase your chances a lot. I've seen a lot of managers go out of their way to get stacks, like a Stroud Collins stack, that kind of thing. It's not worth it. Don't do it. But if it's there, don't avoid it because it's a stack. That being said, there are some stacks that I do want to avoid. So sometimes you look at yourself and you got 2 wide receivers on the same team. You got a running back and a tight end, running back and a wide receiver. And that's totally okay. But that's going off our point earlier, which is players on good teams. Do you want two players on the Bills who are supposedly score over 450 points on the season, or two players on the Browns who are looking at like 300 points on the season? Um, with standard format for fantasy of the one quarterback, two running back, two wide receivers, a tight end, a flex. If you have two players on the team, you're looking at 20%. That's one fifth of your production on this sole team. So maybe you get David Njoku at great value. You get Jerry Judy at great value. Both those players I like on teams as pieces. But then look, you see, oh, now you have 20% of your production relying on the fucking Cleveland Browns. Absolute disaster. So, yeah, try and avoid those cases if you can. Some teams, it's okay. Personally, if you're like on the Bengals, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, I'm totally fine with. They're letting Trey Hendrickson go. It seems like he's not signed. They're trying to trade him. They're going to have to score 9 million points to end up as a 500 team. So, yeah, that's the case where I'm okay, two players on the same team. Let's see. Moving on. Next, we have injured players. So every year there's players in the fantasy football draft who are falling due to injuries from previous seasons, the off season, that kind of thing. And I, for one, am not one who's going to sign up for dealing with injury before the season even starts. There's going to be at least one player, if not more, on your team that gets injured throughout the year. I guarantee it. And it's going to be a starter, too. So heading into the draft, I'm not going to voluntarily put my position to get another player that's injured already. So players like Chris Godwin, Tyjae Spears just had a high ankle sprain, like that kind of thing. I don't want to deal with it. Like, just not for me. Even though you feel like you're getting the upside, Chris Godwin over 20 points per game last year when he's healthy, it's just not worth the headache. And you're like, oh, he'll be back later in the season. It's great, but you're wasting these picks that could be spent on players who are actually scoring you points. Weeks 1 through 4 matter just as much as 11 through 14. If you're losing these early season games just because you have injured players and you're banking on winning these end of season games, it's just not a good strategy. You don't want to have to be do or die in the last 3 weeks of the season. So chances are most people who draft these injured players aren't going to make the playoffs. I would highly avoid it. Um, and then my last point here is just for kind of the competitiveness and the fun of your league is getting rid of the waiver wire in terms of waiver claim order and switching to a fab budget. I'm a big fan of fab budget in all my leagues. For those who don't use it, it's pretty straightforward. Every player gets the same allotted $100. You can set it to whatever you want. And when week 1 ends and there's a waiver wire, instead of just being like who had the last pick in your draft gets the first claim, i.e. the next Puka Nakua, everybody has a shot to bid whatever amount of money they want on that player. The money, once you use it up, it's gone. You could bid $0 and still get a player. That's something in settings you got to do. Highly recommend. But that way, each week, everyone feels like they have a shot at each player. Plus, you can use different strategies. Do you want to hold on to your money to the middle of the season, get a better picture for things? Maybe down the stretch, you want to keep it, or blow all the money at the beginning, that kind of thing. So highly suggest it. Makes it a lot more competitive, a lot more fun. One thing too that I noticed that it helps with is sometimes you have a couple people who forget about or miss the waiver wire in your league, and that's okay. But what this does is it leads to somebody getting a player who they very much shouldn't be getting. So obviously you could call it an unserious league, but life happens. You don't want Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua falling to someone who shouldn't be getting him. So you just want a chance at every player. This makes it that case. So, yep. Anyways, that's all the points I have for today. Key things to get you thinking on before your fantasy football drafts. Get you a leg up on your league mates. Highly suggest doing them. If not, whatever, that's cool too. So I'm very excited to start some drafts. Already done quite a few. So good luck in all of your drafts, and I'll be seeing you guys throughout the fantasy football season. Peace.